Nona Peltier joins us now for the business news. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
So, Nona, workers are not very satisfied about their lives.
Well, most are actually satisfied, but
most
some
of them are.
Most are satisfied, but some
Okay.
are dissatisfied. So just over 4%, but that works out to 113,000 people. So it's not a small number of people who are dissatisfied. And these aren't people who are just dissatisfied. Some are deeply dissatisfied in that group. Yes, and believe it or not, those people who are deeply dissatisfied are also dissatisfied with their own lives. And it mirrors what the statistics department has found with unemployed people, which also equal that same number. So we're talking about 250,000 people who are dissatisfied with their lives, whether they're working or not. And most of the time it's because the ones who are working, they don't like their workplace environment. It's stressful. And I guess they don't think they're getting paid enough probably as well. And those kinds of things are impacting their health. So the statistics department look at these numbers every, 4 or 5 years? And they took this survey of 9,000 people late last year.
Right.
And I guess it's about looking at the well-being of the people in our world. And I guess I asked whether or not that would feed into our well-being measures. They weren't too sure about that. But nevertheless, they do collect this data, and it was kind of interesting.
So you're saying it correlates with, at least the number of deeply dissatisfied correlates with the number of unemployed?
Yeah, so overall, we're talking about 250,000 people wandering around feeling pretty unhappy whether they're working or not.
And it's not just because they're not being paid enough.
No, it's a number of things. It's communication, it's stress in the workplace. It's all the things that we all know upset us. But some people are really deeply dissatisfied with their environment, and that is a bit of a concern for sure.
Turning to the Financial Markets Authority, they have plans to increase their scrutiny of the conduct and culture of these firms and listed companies over the next year. We've heard a lot about this, and it seems that it's the new normal.
Well, the Financial Markets Authority come up with a work plan every year, as you'd expect. It's a regulator. And so now this year they're going to focus very much on banks and insurance sector, which is primarily their job anyway. But they're going to pull them up and they're going to say, listen, you're not doing a good enough job when it comes to looking after consumers. We're concerned about your misconduct, and we know it's going on, so you can be sure that we're coming after you. We're going to pay a lot more attention to what you're doing, and they're expecting the sector to pull up their socks. It's in their own interest, they suggest. And anyway, we should expect to see more from the Financial Markets Authority on the culture and conduct of banks. Certainly, it's been in the news a lot, as you can, as you know, and our listeners will know too.
Good. And the markets, how do they look?
Interesting. We finished up again, 0.4%, 43 points up to a record 10,867. And this is really because the market is expecting an interest rate cut from the Federal Reserve, which is interesting, but maybe not as much of an interest rate cut as they were hoping for, but nevertheless, still enough to support the markets. Our dollar is a little bit mixed. There's some concern about maybe the Reserve Bank is going to tinker with monetary policy. So we saw a little bit of a dip, not a lot, but we're 67.3 US cents. That's still quite strong. 95.9 Australian and 54 pence. And of course, that's just ahead of what we're expecting to hear out of the UK with their new Prime Minister to be heard this morning.
All right. We'll keep an eye out and near out for that. I think it's going to be pretty late tonight. But
well, late tonight here, but this morning.
Almost
this
midday
morning,
over
I guess,
there.
in the UK, right?
Yeah. Thanks very much, Nona. Always good to have you here in the studio, the very latest in the business world.